Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So what I'll do today, I will discuss data ingestion and some of the best practices around mapping. So when you are working with data cloud, right? Obviously, the expectation is you'll be bringing a data from different sources, right? Which is the whole point of having a data cloud to begin with, right? It's an expensive tool, so it's very important you make the best use of it. Now, I will be discussing a few points, right, which you might find it interesting if you're trying to, start that data cloud journey, wherever you're working, or if your business is looking to buy data cloud. The first thing first, right, before I even discuss any of these things, right, I do expect your business or your company where you work, or if you're a business owner, you need to have a data governance in place, right, because if you're dealing with data, data governance is very important, and because the kind of data you wanted to bring in and the data modification process, how the data flow from one system to another system, and what all the governance associated with that. It's very important you guys have that in place. So that's why you need to have a data architect or system architect or Salesforce architect or whichever architect, right, who can look after the data governance. It's just very important to make sure the data architect, or I'll put it architect in general, right, have that conversation with the business stakeholders, um, as well as to the technical people like your tech lead or designers or design leads or developers or engineers who are right. It's very important to have the conversation before you would start bringing the data, right? So that's the first thing, right? As you can see, align data source with the marketing goal, sales score. So, what exactly are you trying to achieve, right? That's the first question you should be asking. That's why it's very important. You have an architect in place or an enterprise architect in place who start building that vision, right? What exactly you're trying to achieve with the data, right? Are you trying to achieve your sales goal or your finance goal or marketing goal? So, based on that, you need to liaise with the business to understand what exactly they wanted to see, right? What metrics they wanted to measure, what kind of information they would like to be measured on, right? So that's why it's very important to align your business objective with the technical objective, right? Because just having a tool is irrelevant, right? If you're not really sure what business outcome you wanted to drive. And so I've seen lots of places where people, often say, "Oh, let's buy this tool, let's buy this component, let's buy this open source pack. Let's sorry, not buy because it's free, open source. Let's get this open source." But what business outcome are you trying to achieve, right? You could say, "Look, this is for a technical stability of a platform, which is great." So you could say that, these components or these um, relevant services will enable a stable platform which help us to deliver any business outcome in a short span of time, right? Without worrying about unwanted bugs or scalability issues. So you need to focus on that, and the source system, right? It's very important. You need to, if you're an architect, if you're a consultant, to analyze from where you're getting the system, right? Where you're getting the data from. Is it from another Salesforce CRM, or is it from a Microsoft Dynamics, or from now we even have HubSpot, right? You wanted to bring it from HubSpot, or you wanted to get it from, let's say, Unit 4 Business World, that's another ERP, that's an ERP system, right? Or you wanted to get it from SAP, or you wanted to gather from different other custom built applications. So you need to have you need to identify the right data source, right? And the data ownership and access, right? This is where I say, right, data governance. I'm sorry I jumped ahead a bit fast, but I just wanted to make sure you understand that before we even do anything with the data cloud, make sure you have data governance in place. If not, it's good to get that thing set up first before you even start bringing any tool which deals with the data, right? It doesn't matter, data cloud, Snowflake, or whatever, right? Or Teradata, or so who owns the data? That's very important, right? Who is responsible for taking the data decision? who's responsible for seeing what, right? Because you should not be exposing every data to everyone, right? So that's why the data ownership is very important. Certain data can only sit with certain people in a business, right? So that's very important. Uh, okay, avoid common pitfalls, right? Which is very important. So most of the things, right, which normally happens when you're bringing a data, right? Even if you know if you're doing a machine learning analysis, right, you need to make sure your input data is in the right format, right? So there's a concept with they use hot encoding. I don't want to get into that. I'm just in simple terms, I would say you need to make sure your data is in the right format. Your fields, your uh, the data should be categorized in the right format so that there's a consistency in the data you're bringing, right? For instance, yes or no in some data sets you have, in some data sets you might say one and zero, right? So you need to classify in the right and standardized format. At times, what might happen, you might have a duplicate record, so you might need to check that, or you need to build a logic inside the system to make sure that the duplicate records are ignored, or if you need it, right? So case by case. So make sure that data cloud should not be used as a dumping ground for every data. You just need to transform and massage your data before you actually ingest. That will be the ideal suggestion because then you have to build the logics and rules and all kind of validation scenarios to make sure the data is valid. So it's better to make sure you get the data right before you ingest it, right? And also it's very important to consider the batch size limit, right? So that's why it's very important to understand data cloud first of all, right? If you're trying to use it, to understand the capability it can offer before you try bringing the data, right? So respect ethics, privacy, and concern, right? This is very important, right? Because, say, for instance, you're working for a bank, it's very important to you have to respect the GDPR, right? Because, for instance, I'm a New Zealand citizen. I'm also a European Union citizen, so I don't want my data to be captured, right? There is a GDPR rule, and New Zealand has to follow, especially when they're dealing with data like me or people, who holds the EU passport, right? So it's very important, right? People should consider that. And now, how do you do that? So for that, you need to make sure only the relevant information is captured and destroyed after the use, right? That's where the data minimalization and concern management comes in the picture. So I'm just giving you a summary in general how the data ethics, right? It also there should be a compliance team in your company, or usually if you work at large enterprise scale organization, you might have a compliance team. Often it's better to get their perspective as well because look, we are dealing with this kind of customer data. What's the compliance regulation behind it, right? There should be a compliance framework in place, and your data flow should follow exactly that, right? Because you cannot avoid your compliance framework in place because it can get you into legal trouble, right? So, for instance, like I said, GDPR customer, you cannot capture more than required information. And what is the required information that you need to check with the compliance, right? What we have in place. We could go in details, but I just don't want to at this stage because just wanted to give you some understanding, some of the best practices when it comes to getting the data or data ingested, right, into data cloud. um, Establish relationship between the objects. So obviously, once you get the data right, so it's very important, right? You get the data right because you wanted to map the data to the right objects. You wanted to make sure the relationship are maintained. You're getting an account and contact, so you need to make sure that relationship is maintained. If it's a parent-child relationship, you should respect that, and the hierarchy mapping you should maintain. And also, you need to have a data model exercise to make sure that this data should go to the standard objects or this data should go into the custom objects. So you just need to make sure you have the right data architect in place who can work with you and understand the data trajectory and also the right data which can be mapped to, right? So what that means is that account information should go to the standard object account. Custom information like for instance uh, bank details, right, should go into the custom objects, right? So or lending information. If you don't have a custom standard lending object, you can go with the custom lending object. So something on that line. right? Just be very careful. So, like I said, right. So, my main intention is just to tell you some of the things which you should consider when you're getting a data to the data cloud, right? So, it's very important to leverage the data dictionary. Like data, I can't emphasize enough how important is the data dictionary. It's up to you which tool you use, right? You could use Excel, which is a primitive way to do it. I still see some people do that, or you can use some. There are a lot of software out there which could help you with the data dictionary because data dictionary is very important. And You just have to make sure, because data dictionary, what is the data dictionary is about? It's the data about your metadata, right? So the field name, the object name, the description of the field, the characters it holds. Is it a primary key or is it a secondary? All kind of stuff, right? If I'm using the SQL language, and if you're talking about SQL Server, you can say is it indexes it contains, um, all kind of stuff. So, and also the version management is important, right? Because maybe you might be handling uh, an object which contains, let's say, 10 fields. A month later, the object might have 20 fields. So you need to go back to see, hey, the version 1 contains 10 fields, version 2 contains 20 fields, right? So, and the changes that happen. So that's why it's good to have a version repo. You could use the repository management, there are a lot of them in place, right? GitHub is there, Bitbucket is there, right? And also, it's very important for the integration as well because usually when you are integrating your system, right? If let's say you wanted to integrate data cloud with other stuff, right? You need to have a glossary of your data to help the team to say, oh look, this object does this object does that, right? So it's even valid for a normal Salesforce org as well, whatever I said, right? Um, so that's why it's very important, right? So yeah, so that's pretty much I wanted to talk about in today's episode. I hope you guys have an amazing Sunday. Adios.